Hello, everybody.
Hi.
I'm Missy.
And I'm April.
And this is
Sheela Na Gig.
Thanks for joining us today. We have yet another amazing Sheela to share with you.
Which I have no idea who she is. I can't wait.
I know, I'm excited. And we're gonna get into that. But April, how are you?
I'm okie dokie.
You've had a lot going on.
I have. I've had a lot going on.
April lost her mom recently.
I did.
It's very sad, but we had a lot of fun with her mom. We went and hung out with her mom, sang songs with her mom.
Yeah, my mom has died of dementia, and she had forgotten a lot, but one of the things she didn't forget was how to sing. It was so amazing. I don't even think she knew her own name. She didn't know my name, but she sang.
Yeah.
And Missy, who's got a gorgeous voice, sang.
Oh, sweet.
And I have to tell you, I had this one lasting memory I have is when we were singing Willie Nelson's song, "You're Always on My Mind."
Yeah, she loved that.
She started to tear up and cry, and so of course Missy started tearing, and I started tearing, and so it was a sweet memory.
Yeah, for me too. And I was telling April that spending some time with her mom, it was really good for me. My mom died at 56. I just turned 56, so it's crazy. It's like, oh my gosh, I made it, and now I feel like I have to live this year for the year she never got. And
no pressure.
No pressure at all. I'm gonna live this year. Well, I think having our awesome podcast is going to help.
I do too.
By the way, you can hear my dog. She's old and she has long nails because she doesn't like to walk so much as she used to. Anyway, but I was saying that it was kind of nice because I love people's moms anyway, and I think it just has to do with the fact that I lost my mom young. I was 26. I wasn't super young, and she was 56. So I always I don't know, I love meeting people's moms, and I love observing that relationship, and I love having a relationship with people's moms, and my dog is chasing a fly.
And my dog is commenting on it.
Oh my gosh, okay. And so it was really nice because there was a point when I got to be with April, and she was kind of, telling her mom that she forgave her for everything and that she could let go. And I realized it was a really important moment for me too because I never got to have that moment with my mom. So it was really special and amazing that I got to share that moment with April or experience that moment myself. So it kind of set me free.
I'm so glad. It certainly helped me in my moment, and I'm glad it helped you.
Oh, I'm so, yeah. And to Roz.
And to Roz.
Clink.
She was a little bit of a Sheela herself. Can I tell you a quick
please,
Sheela?
Yeah, please, because she was. She totally was.
She was 94 when she passed, and when she was in her 30s, she was very proud because she was one of the first women, as she tells it. I don't know how she knows she's one of the first, but she got a credit card in her own name. Because women at that time were getting Mrs. Alvin Jack Braverman,
right, yeah.
And she got her own card in her own name.
That's so cool.
And she was very proud of that.
She should have been proud. And she was an amazing woman. I mean, she worked.
She worked as an executive secretary, and she helped broker deals, commercial real estate deals. Had she been a man in her time, I think she would have been promoted.
Yes.
And she was pretty impressed with her own salary. Her boss did recognize how influential she was in the business.
Wow. What year was that? What years were those?
She started in 1965, and she stayed there till she retired, but her boss died of lung cancer in the 80s. So she worked for him for quite a few decades, and he really elevated her in that time. And she felt very empowered, but it was nothing like what I think a man's recognition would have been had she done the same job in a man's body.
Yeah.
But
of course.
But she was proud. She loved what she did. And by the way, I was in New York recently, and I got to sprinkle ashes by her work, and wait for it, by Bloomingdale's. My mother loved Bloomingdale's.
That is so wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you did that. I think that was just amazing that you did that.
Yeah, that was really healing too.
Yeah, really healing. Good for you. I love that. But April's with us, and we've taken a little hiatus. You guys didn't really know, but because we're releasing all these back to back. But yeah, we had to take a little hiatus. April's been going through a lot, kind of, so she's back.
I'm back, and I want to know about this new Sheela.
Okay, our Sheela today is Mary Phelps Jacob. A little background for you. Women today can actually breathe a little easier thanks to a World War I metal shortage.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to tell you a little bit about that.
Please do.
This is where we're starting.
All right.
So before World War I, women squeezed themselves into corsets. You may have seen pictures of corsets. You may have seen, yeah. And it molded to their figure to fit like the Victorian ideal of a voluptuous bosom atop a teeny waist. But since corset frames were mostly made of metal, which was needed for ammunition and other military supplies, the U.S. War Industries Board asked American women in 1917 to stop buying and wearing corsets to help their men win the war.
Well, what a sacrifice.
I know, thank God, right?
Imagine, ladies, please take off that metal cage.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Gratefully, I'm sure they were so grateful to be, here you go. Yep, don't need to wear this anymore. So this freed up wartime steel and women alike. That's right. In fact, according to testimonies from that time, the switch allowed the country to save up to 28,000 tons of metal.
Oh my gosh,
that's
a lot of corsets.
That's enough to build apparently 2 battleships.
Oh, okay.
So that's pretty significant.
That is pretty significant.
And not something you would ever really think about.
I had never given that a single thought.
I know. It's quite interesting, right? Okay. So besides conserving resources, other aspects of the war also contributed to the demise of the corset.
Yes.
For instance, during the war, American women found themselves working in factories.
That's true,
do you think it'd be really comfortable to be working in a factory and wearing a corset? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Yeah, places where it simply wasn't possible to functionally properly wear the ultra-tight, ultra-restrictive corset. So for many reasons, the corset, kind of
clunked out of history.
All right. And thank God, right?
Yeah, right.
Oh my God, right? Okay, so cometh Mary Phelps Jacob.
Yes.
She was born on April 20th, 1891 in New Rochelle, New York. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes, you are.
Okay. You're a New Yorker,
I am a New Yorker.
Okay. She was the oldest child of Mary and William Jacob. She also had 2 brothers, Leonard and Walter. He went by Bud Phelps Jacob. But she was nicknamed Polly to distinguish her from her mother, who was also named Mary.
Right.
Yeah, it's like in my family. My mom was Mary Jean, and my sister was Mary Margaret.
And we know.
So they went, yeah, exactly. So they went by Jean and Margaret, right? Yeah. Okay, so Polly's family was not super rich, but her father had been raised, as she put it, to ride hounds, to sail boats, and lead cotillions. And he lived extravagantly.
Okay.
And in 1914, the family actually presented Polly to the King of England at a garden party.
Oh, well.
Yes.
She came out.
Yes, at a garden party in England.
Of course.
Isn't that lovely?
In her corset? No.
You know what? In 1914, she was still wearing a corset. Yeah.
Oh,
You're right. In her corset.
In her corset.
It's true.
Okay.
Because that wasn't until a little bit later.
Poor
so,
Mary
yeah.
wasn't breathing too well, but as she came.
Yes, poor Mary was choking, but
but nevertheless, I'm sure she choked gracefully.
Yeah, just like thinking about it, suddenly I feel short of breath. Like,
is that why they had the smelling salts?
Exactly. That is why they had the smelling salts. Oh my God. I mean, you did some acting in your day. Did you ever have to wear a corset?
I did not.
I had to wear a corset because I did a couple period pieces. And, oh my God, you would have to hold on to the edge of a table, and then they would have to pull. And you could not breathe. You literally could not breathe. So I have worn a couple corsets in period pieces that I've done in acting. And if I had to do that every day of my life, oh my God, that's horrible. I would die. Okay.
All right.
So anyway, her family divided its time between estates in Manhattan and Watertown, Connecticut, and in New Rochelle, New York. She enjoyed the advantages of an upper-class lifestyle. She attended formal balls, Ivy League school dances, and she received equestrian training at a horse riding school.
So she was a proper lady.
She was a proper lady.
Okay.
Right. And she studied dance, and she attended Miss Chapin's school in New York City, and then boarded at Rosemary Hall, a prep school in Wallingford, Connecticut.
Sounds divine.
It sounds divine, doesn't it? Yes.
Certainly.
She had, all the things that she could imagine. After her father's death, though, in 1908, she lived with her mother at their home in Watertown, Connecticut. That same year, she met her future husband, Richard Peabody, at summer camp. Approaching her own debut, she danced in balls most nights and slept from 4 a.m. until noon. That's what you did in those days. You would just dance at the balls and then sleep all day. Get your beauty sleep.
Well, how old was she? She was a young woman?
Yeah, she was a young woman.
Because frankly, that's my teenager's idea of the life. Well, actually, they just turned 20. But yeah. Up all night, sleeping till noon sounds right.
Exactly. And then she graduated. How she graduated doing that, I have no idea. But she graduated from Rosemary Hall in 1910 at the age of 19. Okay. And that same year, the rebellious debutante had decided to wear a bold dress to a debutante ball. And
Is that what made her bold? That she wore this bold dress?
Yes, she was quite bold. Like, she was very opinionated from the time she was young.
So you didn't tell us that
she
part.
selected this bold dress to wear for her, for this debutante ball.
Okay.
And she had donned a stiff corset and tight corset cover beneath her sheer evening gown. But the corset cover, which she described as a box-like armor of whalebone and pink cordage, poked through her gown. So
scandalous.
Well, not even scandalous. She couldn't wear that. That would just be gauche. A whalebone sticking through. So because of her, she had quite a generous bosom. Mm-hmm. So she couldn't appear at such an event without a corset.
Of course not.
So she needed an alternative. She needed an alternative. And she said to her maid, "Bring me 2 of my pocket handkerchiefs and some pink ribbon, if you would."
Did she speak like that?
Well,
do we know?
I don't know.
You're embellishing.
No, she probably had a New York accent.
Go
ahead, April.
Yeah, she probably did.
What'd she say?
Like, give me the corsets or give me the handkerchiefs, right? I can't go out like this. My boobs are hanging out.
And I have a whalebone sticking through my dress.
No whalebones through the dress. That just doesn't work.
So, anyway, her maid helped her sew the materials into a simple brassiere, if you will.
Ah, very clever.
See where we're getting?
I see where we're going with this.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
So, her invention was the talk of the party. Other girls crowded around asking how she danced so freely. And when she unveiled her creation in the bathroom.
I was going to say, and she unveiled this where?
She took off all clothes.
Girls, look at this.
It's getting hot in here. So take off all your clothes. No, so...
I doubt it. At a debutante ball. Although I have never been to a debutante ball, so I shouldn't speak out of turn. Go ahead.
I had a Dirty and 30 party. I had a debutante ball for my 30th birthday. It was a coming out.
Dirty and 30 doesn't sound like what we're talking about.
I know. It was like my debutante ball cake. I remember had a bunch of like dancing ladies in like dresses, and then it had some penises. Oh. It was like Dirty and 30. I don't know why. Like it was just this really
it's something to do.
And then I had everybody dressed like formally, but I had a petting zoo.
Okay.
And
I'm getting scared.
It was the best birthday ever, actually. But anyway, okay, I digress. So basically,
so she's in the bathroom.
She's in the bathroom. She's showing off like her invention, and all these women immediately asked her to sew bras for them too. Said, "Oh my gosh, can you make me one of those? Can you make me one? I want one of those. Oh my gosh, right?" So when strangers were there offering $1 for one of her bras, a hefty sum at that time, the astute businesswoman recognized the product's potential and patented it.
Ooh,
patented it.
Patented right then and there.
Yep. She patented it on February 12th, 1914, and she called her invention the backless brassiere.
The backless brassiere. Huh?
Right.
I could use one of those.
I know, right?
Okay.
Yep. So she married wealthy Richard Peabody in 1915. She had 2 children with him, and they basked in the social world of upper-class Boston.
So was she working at this time manufacturing her bras?
Well,
what was she doing?
April, you're just jumping ahead here.
I'm intrigued.
It's exciting. It's
yes,
exciting.
It
I admit it.
I'm interested.
I admit it. All right, so here's the deal. Yes, she was born Sheela Mary Phelps Jacob, but she eventually became Caresse Crosby. I just have to say this because I'm going to start referring to her as Crosby because it's just going to be easier at this point. Okay? All right. So after Crosby married Richard Peabody, She filed a legal certificate with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts on May 19th, 1920, declaring that she was a married woman conducting a business using funds that were from her husband's bank account. In 1922, she founded the Fashion Form Brassiere Company, locating her manufacturing shop on Washington Street in Boston, where she opened and ran a two-woman business manufacturing her wireless brassieres.
So was she actually sewing, or did she hire other people to sew?
That's a good point. Hard to say. I would imagine she hired people to do the sewing for her.
I can't imagine the debutante sitting there.
Yeah,
sewing.
I can't either. I could do a little more research for you, April, if you'd like.
No, that's okay.
Okay, so the Fashion Form Brassiere Company.
I like that the dude funded the money, gave the money out.
I know.
That was good.
That is good.
We like it.
We like that.
Yeah,
we like the fact that he was supportive of her bra company.
Yeah. There
right?
weren't too many married career women.
No, there weren't. The Fashion Form Brassiere Company initially managed to attract a few orders from department stores. It was exciting.
Cool.
But her startup soon fizzled. I'm sorry to say.
Well, a lot of startups do. Don't lose faith.
Yeah. And although initially, Richard Peabody had supported her in her endeavor, he kind of had a distaste for conventional business and had a generous trust fund.
So he just lived off of his money? Is that where this is going?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. He just didn't like conventional business. He lived off a trust fund himself, and he discouraged her from pursuing the business any longer. And at this point, he insisted that she close it, which is very sad. But,
yeah, that is sad.
But, it wasn't really succeeding for whatever reason either. So, it initially started out. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So Crosby sold her patent to the Warner Brothers Corset Company in Connecticut for a mere $1,500.
Oh, man, because we know about Warner Company.
I know, right? I know. And that's approximately $30,000 today.
Oh, okay. Well, still, though.
So
that's not a lot of money.
No, but, back then, that was considered quite a bit of money.
Okay.
So it was considered, somewhat of a success. Okay. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay. And not bad until you consider the fact that Warner Brothers, of course, managed to do quite a bit better with the patent.
Yeah, that's what.
Ultimately earning an estimated $15 million.
Yeah.
Which is about $200 to $300 million today, from that very design in the following 3 decades.
All because she had a herringbone stuck in her.
It's not a herringbone, a whalebone, okay? Big difference, April. Okay, sadly.
Wasn't paying attention.
Sadly, Warner also detached Crosby's name from its history.
Oh, that's why she's a Sheela. She didn't get her due.
She really didn't.
And that's why we're here.
Yeah, that's why we're here.
That's what we do.
But I want to go on to tell you about Crosby because she is just so amazing.
Okay.
There's a lot to tell about her.
Well, go for it.
So we're just going to keep going. Yes, that was sad. That was a little, maybe, somewhat of a setback. But
okay.
Yeah, but she had a lot more life in her. So that's not exactly the end of her story. Crosby went on to have an amazing life, which I'm going to share with you. In 1917, Richard Peabody, her husband, enlisted in World War I, and he didn't return until 1921.
Oh, wow. That was a long tour of duty.
It was. And again, he was kind of a trust fund baby. Mm-hmm. So, she still lived quite comfortably and, it's okay. She had her 2 kids. And he suffered, though. He suffered greatly from his war experiences, as people do. And he returned being a heavy drinker. And Crosby actually is quoted as saying he only had 3 real interests. And they were all acquired at his schooling at Harvard, but just continued and made worse by his his wartime. And basically those activities were to play, to drink, and to turn out at any hour to chase after fire engines and watch buildings burn.
Oh, wow.
Why? I don't know why she said that. I guess he was obsessed with burning buildings.
I was waiting for chasing other women, but she's chasing fire.
I guess it's better that you chase fire engines than women, right?
I don't know.
I mean, I would prefer that. It kind of sounds like a dog or something.
Chasing after. All right, so moving on.
I just have a moment. So I'm from Detroit originally, and in Detroit we celebrate Devil's Night.
By chasing fire engines?
No, but there are a lot of fires.
We set fires.
Yeah, people set fires on Devil's Night. And Devil's Night is always the night before Halloween. When I was a kid, it was like you would get to go out on Devil's Night.
Yeah.
And you knew, like your mom, my mom was cool enough to know if she didn't let us go, we would be like beat up at school the next day. We would be the biggest dorks in the world. So my mom would be like, all right. Here's 2 rolls of toilet paper. Here's a can of shaving cream and some ketchup. I'm not giving you any eggs. Don't go to Lorengo's house.
Yeah.
So
there were some standards.
Yeah, she would have some, you know what I mean? No shaving cream on the cars, only on the sidewalks. She'd have these rules, you know what I mean? Because it was a night to be destructive, essentially. So you'd go and you toilet paper for people's houses, and you'd spray shaving cream, and you'd put. Our big thing is we would take like a napkin, and then we would put ketchup on it, and we would open the screen door and put. Like we would wet the napkin, put ketchup on it, and then put it over the opener for the screen door, and then knock on the door. The person would grab it and get ketchup all over their hand, right? And we'd play doorbell ditch, and it was just like
Night.
But for more sophisticated, Devil Nighter people, they would be like burning up buildings and setting them on fire.
And that's how we got down this road.
Yeah, that's how we came down this road. So when I was, in a band and we had this amazing rehearsal space in downtown Detroit, we would go up to the roof on Devil's Night and just count the fires.
Oh my
and
gosh.
it would be like just like you could just see fires everywhere. It was terrible. I mean, but it was always really fun. We'd go up there on Devil's Night and be like, oh my God, how many fires this year? Yeah.
But this dude,
Anyway, again, I digress.
It wasn't Devil's Night.
It was not Devil's Night. He was just, this is her quote that he loved to, his big thing was to play, to drink, and to chase fire engines. Okay, so.
Yes, moving right along.
Again, Crosby's life was difficult during the war years. And, and when her husband returned home, significantly worse off than he had been before, her life soon abruptly changed too.
I would imagine.
So, whereas before he was only maybe chasing like 1 fire engine every 3 weeks, it became like a night.
My life is plagued by my husband chasing fire engines. Okay.
I don't think I've ever met anybody who's like, my husband's things are not good between us. He's
chasing fire.
Things are not good. He's drinking, and he's just not himself. He's drinking. He's staying up all night, and he's chasing fire engines. Is he a Dalmatian? Is your husband Dalmatian? Oh my God. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm just cracking myself up here. Okay. Anyway, but the catalyst for Crosby's transformation was her introduction and eventual marriage to a man named Harry Crosby.
Oh, so she ends up divorcing.
Yeah, I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit here, but
I was wondering where the Crosby came
from.
from.
Exactly. So this is where our Crosby comes from, right? So basically,
so she left him at a fire engine, right? Fire engine house 101. Yeah,
that's right. So she met this fella, Harry Crosby. Mm-hmm. And he was wealthy, he was socially prominent, he's from this great Boston family.
Didn't chase fires.
He didn't chase fires, although he was another veteran and victim of the recent war.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Did he have issues?
He did.
Okay.
We'll get into those. But Harry attended private schools, and until 19, he appeared to be on a good path to a very comfortable life as an upstanding member of the upper middle class. But his experiences in World War I changed everything. He abandoned all the pretense of living, that expected life for him, a symptom of the lost generation at the time. So there was obviously war is a really debilitating thing. And so a lot of these men came back and they were referred to apparently as the lost generation. A lot of these men who came back and, they had these great educations and they were, moving forward, and then they got sidetracked with the war and they came back and they were just never the same. And you can see why.
Yeah, definitely.
You can see why, right?
Sure.
So he became an infamous bohemian bon vivant, translates to one fond of good living.
Okay.
And Crosby described him as the most vivid personality that she had ever known, electric with rebellion.
Ooh, and she had a little streak of rebellion.
Right?
So
Yeah, exactly. So the two of them met at an Independence Day picnic. Harry's mom, Mrs. Henrietta Crosby, saw in Mrs. Polly Peabody a trustworthy and sincere mother who could chaperone her son, Harry Crosby, and some of his friends to a party on July 4th, 1920. It included dinner and a trip to the amusement park at Nantasket Beach. Crosby, breaking decorum, never spoke to the girl on his left that he was supposed to be spending time with, but focused all his attention on the buxom Mrs. Peabody.
Of course he did.
Yes. Richard, her husband at the time, was in a sanitarium drying out from yet another drunken spell.
Oh, dear.
And she was 28 at this time. Of course, she was still married. She had two small children. And Harry was only 22.
Ooh, a younger fellow.
Mm-hmm. So she was 6 years older than him. Mm-hmm. And he was of a slight build. He was an unusual man, as we see. He had a blonde, pale complexion. He was very handsome. And he had a consuming gaze and enormous charisma. Ooh. To everybody who knew him said this about him. And by some accounts, Harry fell in love with the buxom Mrs. Peabody at that time in about 2 hours. He confessed his love for her in the tunnel of love at the amusement park that day.
Now that's romantic.
Mm-hmm. And Crosby said of that night, "For the first time in my life, I knew myself to be a person."
Oh.
Yes.
Wow,
yes.
Beautiful. In the tunnel of love.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay.
So Crosby was seen by her social circle as someone who had betrayed the trust placed in her as a chaperone.
Oh.
And as an older woman who had taken advantage of a younger man. Crosby's family couldn't believe it. How could their son, barely 22, have fallen in love for this woman,
this older woman,
6 years his senior, married with 2 children?
Right? Scandalous.
No one in Boston had ever heard of such a thing. It was absolutely scandalous. And so, to the Crosbys, she was dishonorable and corrupt. And basically, their courtship was considered scandalous and was the gossip of blue blood Boston.
Oh, I'm shocked.
Yeah. But Crosby continued to pursue her, and in May 1921, when she tried to resist his ardor, Crosby threatened suicide if she did not marry him.
Oh my goodness.
I know,
he was serious.
Dramatic.
Yep.
I don't know. And, you know, in the interim, of course, Mr. Peabody is still in and out of sanitariums, trying to dry out, fighting alcoholism, bless his heart. And so, you know, Crosby just kept saying, you know, you're not happy. Your husband's never around. He's in sanitariums. We could have a wonderful life together. You need to divorce him and marry me.
Makes sense. Sort of.
So in May, she revealed her adultery to her husband and suggested a separation, and he offered no resistance. In February 1922, the two of them were legally divorced.
Scandalous, too.
Scandalous. Oh, yeah, who would have thunk it?
Not I.
Okay. So, on September 9th, 1922, the two of them were married. Harry and, she was still Polly at that time, Harry and Polly were married in the municipal building in New York City, following it up with a telegram to Harry's parents saying, "Please sell $10,000 worth of stock. We've decided to live a mad and extravagant life."
Woo! I love it. Mad and extravagant life. I want to live a mad and extravagant life.
What if you got that telegram from your son? "Please sell $10,000 worth of stock. We have decided to live a mad and extravagant life."
I'd like to know where all that stock came from.
Right, exactly. What stock, right? So 2 days later, the two of them boarded a ship and moved with her children to Paris, France.
Gay Polly, of course.
Yes. And, you know, Harry unleashed her bubbly, wild side, and he drove her to decadent debauchery, which she craved.
Ooh, you make
decadent debauchery.
Decadent debauchery.
Can we just call this one this episode's called Decadent Debauchery.
I love it.
Yes. Okay. Yes. So their glamorous and luxurious lifestyle soon included an open marriage.
Wow.
That's right. Numerous affairs, plenty of drugs and drinking.
Mm-hmm.
Harry enjoyed finding out if the women of Paris were as wild as everyone said.
And were they?
Were they?
Were they? Inquiring minds want to know.
That's right. That's right. At the end of 1924, Harry persuaded Polly to formally change her name. So here it comes.
Here it comes.
Right.
Because
they briefly considered clitoris spelled Clytoris, before deciding on Caresse Crosby. Harry suggested that her new name begin with a C to go with Crosby. And so they decided, since they didn't use clitoris, they named their whippet Clitoris.
Of course. Why not? Come here, clitoris. Come give me some love.
Well, it was spelled a little different, right? So.
Oh, yeah. So that makes it something.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so they had this dog named Clitoris.
Sure. Okay, go ahead.
And her name is now Caresse Crosby. So from their arrival in Paris in 1922, the Crosbys led the life of rich expatriates. They were attracted to the bohemian lifestyle of the artist gathering in Paris. Harry smoked briefly and drank even more, painted his toenails and his fingernails, and spent exorbitant amounts of money on horse racing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why not?
Why not? If you can, why not? I just think it's interesting that they just kind of threw in, and he painted his fingernails and toenails.
I was thinking, what color?
Oh, we'll get to that. No.
Oh.
So despite having invented a bra as a teen, Caresse was an ultra-modern advocate of going bra-free at this point for all to see. She, in fact, attended a ball at the Académie des Beaux-Arts, riding a baby elephant and wearing nothing but a huge turquoise wig.
Ooh.
I know.
She let them all
now that you know who Caresse and Harry Crosby are, you're going to go look them up, and you're going to look at these images, and wow. Wow. Okay. The couple cared little for the future. They spent their money recklessly.
What happened to her kids?
Well, they're there. Yeah. But,
I just, never mind. Picture of her on the elephant.
They essentially got sent to boarding schools quite often. They loved their mom, and she loved them, but she wasn't a stellar mom. And they had a lot of money, so their kids were basically sent to boarding schools. Oh, okay. For the most part. Yeah. But we'll get to them a little later, though, too. They never tried to live on a budget. They spent money, again, recklessly, and was in part because they had made a suicide pact, which they planned to carry out on October 31st, 1942.
Why?
They were going to live this incredibly extravagant life, and then they were going to take their own lives together.
Okay, in 42.
In 1942. That was their plan.
That was the plan.
And that was like 20 years, basically. The idea was they were
just going to... 20-year plan.
Yeah, a 20-year plan. They were going to live the most extravagant life, and then they were going to die together, so...
Okay.
But some say Caresse wasn't necessarily on board with this. This was Harry's plan.
All right.
And I think Caresse may have kind of agreed to it, but maybe not
So
wholeheartedly.
sincere.
Yeah.
I could understand that.
And they chose this date because the Earth would be closer to the sun than it had been in several decades on this date. And they decided that they were going to jump out of an airplane together.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Without a parachute.
And this was going to be followed by a cremation, which their heirs would disperse their ashes from another airplane.
Okay.
So they had they had this
They really had a plan.
This was their thing, right?
Yep.
So in January 1925, they traveled to North Africa where they smoked opium, a habit to which they would return again and again throughout their lives. They loved the opium. Have you ever smoked opium?
I have never smoked opium.
I did once in Vancouver.
Oh.
And I have to say it was pretty awesome.
Was it pretty awesome?
It was pretty awesome. I only did it once because it freaked me out a little bit, but it was pretty awesome.
Huh.
Yeah. Anyway, Caresse and Harry published her first book, Crosses of Gold, in late 1924. It was a volume of conventional, unadventurous poetry centering on themes such as love, beauty, and their relationship.
Oh.
In 1926, they published her second book, Graven Images. In April 27, they founded an English language publishing company.
Wait. What was Graven about? It sounds not decadent and delightful.
I don't know, April.
Oh, okay.
You just ask too many damn questions.
Well, you just tell a good story.
I know you're on the edge of your seat. Just cool it a little, okay?
Okay. No. Calm down. No more questions. Keep going. I won't interrupt.
Okay, so it's April 1927. They've been there for 5 years now. They've been in France.
Yeah.
And they founded an English language publishing company that they first named Editions, Narcisse, later to be called Black Sun Press.
Black Sun Press.
Black Sun Press.
Okay.
So I think although they were extravagant, there's a darkness.
There's a darkness. There's a gravenness to this couple.
See? There's a little darkness too. Uh-huh. So the publishing house got its name because black was Harry's favorite color and he worshipped the sun. The Crosbys enjoyed such a positive reception of their initial work and decided to expand the press to serve other authors. Oh. Black Sun Press became of a wild world of struggling expat writers and artists, again, the so-called lost generation.
Wow.
So they created, this publishing company so that other writers who were of the lost generation, these expats, these, people living this debaucherous life, they all kind of joined together and created this. I think it's really interesting.
It is interesting.
Can you imagine their poetry readings that they did together? And smoked opium and drank expensive champagne and walked around naked reading poetry. Naked except for feathered boas.
Oh,
That's what
are
I'm
you
picturing.
adding the feather?
Yeah, I'm just
embellishing that vision.
I'm just going there. Yeah.
Okay.
So, publishing in Paris during the 1920s and 30s put the company in the milieu of so many American writers who were living abroad. Their friends included Salvador Dali, Picasso, James Joyce, D.H. Lawrence, Ernest Hemingway, Max Ernst, and Anais Nin, to name a few.
The usual suspects.
Yeah, exactly.
Of existential angst.
Exactly. Can you imagine?
No, that'd be amazing.
If that was your guest list,
I would like to come to a few of those.
I know. Would you smoke opium?
I might, just because you said it was amazing.
You gotta try it. Yeah.
Okay.
I've never done heroin. I hear that's pretty amazing too, but
let's not.
No, I've never gone there. No, don't think I'll do that. All right. So they preferred to entertain guests in bed.
Of course. Where else would you entertain?
They had this giant bed, and they dressed in.
Oh, and everybody comes under the covers.
Yeah, exactly. They all cuddle together.
Uh-huh.
I don't know what else happened, but they dressed in these magnificent dressing gowns, and of course their whippets, clitoris. They had two by this point. They had clitoris, and then they had narcisse.
I was waiting for both of them.
So
what was I thinking?
Clitoris and scrotum.
We could do this all day long.
Oh my god. Okay, so clitoris and narcisse are their whippets, and they would be part of the party too. They would just jump on the bed with them, and
everybody wants a dancing clitoris.
Right.
Okay.
And all four of them. So in other words, the two dogs and Caresse and Harry would all have gilded toenails laden with jewelry.
You did tell me to wait about the toenails.
They love to all paint their toenails gold.
Oh.
And then they would wear jewelry. Just gold toenails and jewelry. I don't think they wore anything else. And then they would paint their dog's toenails. I don't think they did it. I think they had their dog's toenails painted.
Done. Yeah. You know how I was asking about the kids?
Yeah.
God bless boarding school.
Yes, totally. Can you imagine these kids?
No.
But I'm sure they came home on holidays and stuff. Oh, lordy. A little side note again. My ex-sister-in-law, she really wanted a miniature dachshund. So my brother finally got her one, and she was so happy. And I remember him saying, God, if I'd known this would save my marriage, I would have done it a long time ago. But she would have the dog's nails painted pink every week.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah. So the dog's name was Penny, and Penny always had little pink nails. So still happening today. Okay. So anyway, champagne and caviar would be served before everyone took off all their clothes and laid around in the bed, and then they also had this giant bathtub. So then it would end in this communal bath.
Oh, okay.
With Salvador Dali and Picasso and Ernest Hemingway.
Wouldn't every
Max
bath
Ernst,
shouldn't every bath end that way?
It should. Of course, then they'd smoke some opium.
Why not?
They all had multiple affairs with one another. They traveled the world. They wrote poetry. They spent money like water, disregarding anything that resembled convention. Yeah.
Sounds grand.
Sounds grand, right?
Yes.
I mean, it does. Although, for how long is that grand? I don't know.
Apparently you do. There are some pages there.
Okay. So, in 1929, Harry and Caresse were visiting the nephew of J.P. Morgan in his chateau.
Oh.
Strolling around the vast estate area, they came up on an old windmill. It was dilapidated, but it was beautifully located. So they immediately told the owner that they wanted to buy it. Harry did not have his checkbook on him, so he ripped off the cuff of one of Caresse's sleeve and wrote a check upon that.
Well,
Which
okay.
you know you can do that.
No, I did not.
Did you not know this?
No.
You can write a check on anything.
Who knew?
Yeah. It doesn't have to be a check. It could be a piece of paper.
Wow.
Well, that was that.
Okay.
And then over the years, they just made this incredible, now they have a windmill, right?
Yeah.
So they turned this windmill into like a total beautiful party pad, and they decadently furnished it. And
Did they put in a bed and a bathtub for parties?
Yes.
Of course.
And, they just had all kinds of artists living there, including Gertrude Stein, D.H. Lawrence again, and Frida Kahlo.
Ooh.
Who don't they know?
They knew everybody.
I know.
It was the who's who of
Right.
who was.
And it was an extravagant life indeed, and it just continued. So they still had their other place, but this was like a little side venture.
Sure, I want to go out to my windmill.
Yeah, exactly. Come hang out at the windmill for a few days,
I
right?
love the windmill.
Okay, so although in love,
Yes.
Caresse and Harry continued, though, to have an open marriage. And supposedly they both enjoyed that.
Oh, good.
And they both had many lovers, and within that group that we described and outside of that group, and it was just...
Could you imagine them at night, like, comparing notes?
Yeah, and as they're having these open relationships, on July 9th, 1928, Harry met 20-year-old Josephine Noyes Roch,
Uh-oh.
whom he would later call the youngest princess of the sun. He also called her the Fire Princess. And in a letter to his mother, dated July 24th, 1928, Harry wrote, "I'm having an affair with a girl I met, not introduced, at the Lido. She is 20 and has charm. She's named Josephine. I like girls when they are very young before they have any minds." Oh, Lordy.
Oh, dear.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So, Josephine and Harry, had this ongoing affair.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of my understanding again was that they had an open relationship, but it wasn't like...
I have a feeling she didn't have Josephine in mind when she agreed to it.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah,
I don't
getting
think
that
so.
feeling.
So, they had this ongoing affair, but then Josephine married. So their relationship had to temporarily end because Josephine said, "Look, I'm getting married. This can't go on. This has been really fun, but..."
Sounds like Charles and Camilla.
Keep going. Oh, yes.
Sorry.
Okay. So, however, Josephine ended up rekindling the affair. Mm-hmm. And in late November 1929, Harry and Josephine met and traveled to Detroit, where they checked into a very expensive hotel. It's called the Cadillac Hotel. And
In Detroit?
Yes, in Detroit, my hometown. I don't remember the Cadillac Hotel. And they checked in as Mr. and Mrs. Harry Crane. For 4 days, they took meals in their room, they smoked opium, and they had sex.
Imagine.
Can you imagine? But where's Caresse?
Last I left off, she was in France.
Yeah, she's carrying on naked at the windmill with,
what
Frida
was it?
Kahlo,
Right.
and, you know what I mean, smoking some opium. She's just doing her thing. It's fine.
Okay.
Yeah. So, again, that was in late November 1929. And they ended up returning to New York after that 4 days in Detroit. They had a lovely time.
Yep.
And once again, they attempted to end the affair, just saying that was wonderful, but
4
we're both
days,
married.
c'est la vie.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Josephine agreed that she would return to Boston and her husband, but 2 days later she delivered a 36-line poem to Harry, who was staying with Caresse at the Savoy Plaza Hotel. The last line of the poem read, "Death is our marriage."
Oh.
On December 9th, Harry Crosby wrote in his journal for the last time, "One is not in love unless one desires to die with one's beloved."
What is it with Harry and dying with the beloved?
I know. Okay. And so it continues. "There is only one happiness. It is to love and to be loved." Harry was found at 10 o'clock that night in bed at Stanley Mortimer's studio in the Hotel des Artistes. He had a .25 caliber bullet hole in his right temple, and he lay next to Josephine, who had a matching hole in her left temple. They were in an affectionate embrace.
So they did a dual suicide?
They did.
Oh my.
Isn't that sad?
What is with Harry? He was a very morbid lover. I don't understand
He
why.
was. Black Sun. He was the Black Sun.
Sun,
He-
right?
He was the Black
He
Sun.
was the Black Sun.
Yep.
Goodness.
Yep, I know it's those moody artistes, they really get to you. But anyway, if meeting Harry was the first pivotal moment of Caresse's life, his death was the second.
Oh, I'm sure. That
She
must
was
have
devastated.
been some shocker.
She was devastated.
Oh.
I mean,
she didn't know? Did she have any idea? Oh,
she didn't even know. She didn't even know that he was
Wow.
having the affair.
Oof.
And so this was a total shock.
Except she gets to not have to jump
I
out
was
of a plane.
just thinking that. I was just thinking, was there any little bit of like...
Silver lining?
Yeah, was there any little bit of like, okay, now I don't have to jump out of a plane?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. But I mean, no. She was devastated. She was devastated. He left her $100,000, which is about $1,704 in today's money.
Okay.
That was in his will. And Crosby decided to reclaim her birth name, Mary. And
she was giving up.
Yeah. No. This is really weird, and I don't know why she did this, but she decided to reclaim her birth name, Mary, and thus was known after his death as Mary Caresse Crosby.
Oh, okay. All right.
I don't know how that...
What?
I don't know. But
this is not a woman easily understood.
no, it's true. It's a good point. So she's now Mary.
Okay.
See, it's confusing. She's had so many names.
She has.
Polly. What was she born?
Mary.
I don't know. So after Harry's suicide, Caresse pursued ambitions as an actress. And then she had kind of been doing that since her 20s. She appeared as a dancer in 2 short experimental films. And she decided to really dedicate herself to the Black Sun press.
Okay.
And
You'd think she'd learn her lesson with Black Sun, but okay.
Yeah. And she also established with Jacques Pourrel a side venture to publish paperback books when they were not so popular.
Oh.
Yeah. And so she named this particular thing, it was called the Crosby Continental Editions. And Ernest Hemingway, a longtime friend, offered her a choice of The Torments of Spring in 1926 or The Sun Also Rises.
Well, Ernest
as
was generous.
Yeah, as their debut volume for the new venture.
Fabulous.
What did Carrie's pick?
Which one?
Not The Sun Also Rises. Damn!
She's not an optimist.
No, she's a Black Sun. She chose The Torments of Spring, which of course was less well received than The Sun Also Rises. But she followed Hemingway's work with 9 more books in 1932, including William Faulkner's Sanctuary and Dorothy Parker's Laments for the Living, and many more. Of course, Dorothy Parker had to come onto the scene. I'm such a Dorothy Parker. Are you a Dorothy Parker?
I am. I'm a Dorothy Parker.
Oh, God, I love Dorothy Parker.
do
Okay,
as well.
so yeah, she was doing a lot of cool things with cool people, and after 6 months of sales, the books only grossed about $1,200, and Crosby was unable to persuade U.S. publishers to distribute her work as paperbacks were not widely engaged because publishers were not convinced that readers would buy them. So she closed the press in 1933. So it was just like
Another failed business, but she's given it her try.
Yeah, but, it depends on how you look at failed. It was probably really good for her at the time. She had lost her husband. She was devastated.
Right.
Look, a hummingbird. We can make a wish. Make a wish. It was probably a really good thing at the time. And she got to kind of publish Ernest Hemingway.
Yeah.
And how is that a failure?
Yeah, good
Dorothy
point.
Parker.
Yeah.
So it just depends how you look at it. But
I like your
I think it gave her, it was a little springboard for her, and I think it was good she did it. So in Paris, in 1933, the same year that she closed her press, she met Henry Miller.
Oh.
And when he returned to the U.S. in 1940, they kept in touch. He confessed to Crosby that he couldn't get any of his work published in the U.S. He was having a lot of trouble. So...
she said, I know a thing or two about publishing.
Right. So Miller's autobiographical book, Tropic of Cancer, was banned in the U.S. as pornographic.
Wow. Well,
and he could get no other work published as a result of that. He was the porno guy.
Yeah.
That's how they referred.
That was how he...
Yeah, that's how they looked at him. Can you imagine that? Henry Miller? Yeah. She invited him to take a room in her spacious New York apartment on 54th Street. And she had frequently lived there, so he accepted. And he just lived there. But she did not provide him with any money or anything. She just kind of gave him a place to live and to write. So desperate for cash, he fell to turning out erotica on commission for an Oklahoma oil baron at $1 per page. But after 200-page stories that brought him $200, which today is about $1,933, he could do no more. He couldn't stand it anymore.
He couldn't lower himself any further.
Right. Even though he needed the money, he couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
So you know what he thought?
What?
I know who can do this.
Who?
And he offered the job to Crosby.
Well, of course.
Yes.
Of course.
He said, hey.
She could do anything.
So she was already pitching ideas and pieces of writing to Anais Nin and New York City Smut Club for fun. But there was no money really involved. And so in her journal, Crosby was clever, writing easily and quickly with little to no effort. So she began writing erotica. She was like, why the heck not?
Why not?
New chapter in my life, no pun intended. I'm now going to write erotica. Yeah. What hasn't she done?
She's covered a lot of ground.
It's kind of like Lizzie Maggie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Remember? Right. She was an engineer. She worked at the Dead Letter Rock.
Stop. That woman had more careers than I can't even tell you.
Okay. So Crosby said, sure, to Miller's proposal. I'll do that.
Why not?
And she wrote at the top the title given to her by Henry Miller.
Yeah.
Opus Pistorum.
Opus Pistorum.
He called her Opus Pistorum.
I think I'm going to call that to my husband tonight.
Right. Hey, Opus Pistorum.
I am Opus Pistorum.
Oh,
okay, we shouldn't have too much fun with this.
I know. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
So Crosby turned out over 200 pages, and they just kept asking her for more, basically. And
she knew how to write.
She knew. Crosby's smut was just what the oil man wanted. And according to his New York agent, he had no literary aspirations. He just wanted plain sex and to be as specific as possible.
All right.
Crosby had the experience.
She certainly did.
Yeah.
She had a lot to draw on.
So in Crosby, the agent had found himself a more basic and pornographic version of Henry Miller. So he was like, fantastic, this is great. And I just want to mention that word smut for a moment.
Yeah.
Because it's one of my favorite stories. I digress again. I have to.
Okay.
I have ADD, can you tell? But
yes.
If you ever go up to Seattle, there's an underground city tour. Like Seattle was built as a city, and then they ended up not using that city and building another city on top of it.
Wow.
So you can go to this underground city. It's crazy. It's surreal.
I think I was there.
Did you go?
Yeah.
It's an amazing,
yeah.
But I remember our tour guide, I still remember this. He was giving us the tour, and he said that at the time, Seattle had all these lumberjacks, all these people like building the city, and not a lot of women, but women still, started to get smart. Some women started to get smart, and they thought, I think I could make some money there. A lot of lumberjacks. So they went in, and they decided to call them, they all called themselves seamstresses. So suddenly the city had all these seamstresses. I'm doing quote fingers right now. Air quotes. Yeah. And, but the city got smart. So they decided to charge a sewing machine usage tax. Sewing machine usage tax. Hence the word smut. That's where it came from.
That's where it came from. I never knew that. Thank you for that lesson.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. So anyway.
Yes.
Here she is. Here's Mary Crosby. She is living in New York. She is a porn writer and erotica writer, and she is loving it. And she's making some money, which she doesn't really need.
Right?
She's got quite a bit of money still.
Yeah.
She's doing okay. But she's really just enjoying kind of reinventing herself.
Reliving the best moments of her life.
Oh my God, reliving the best moments of her life. That's right, April. That's precisely what she's doing. So, she's doing okay.
Yeah.
She's doing okay. And then she ended up meeting black actor boxer Canada Lee. Mm-hmm. And despite living under the threat of, it was called miscegenation laws. Basically, these are laws that enforce racial segregation at the level of marriage and intimate relationships by criminalizing interracial marriage and sometimes also sex between members of different races.
What year was this?
This was around, this was in like the late 1930s.
Isn't that amazing that
I know.
It was illegal?
Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy.
Yeah,
Oh.
it is crazy. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So she's having a love affair with Mr. Canada Lee. I like his name. I like Canada Lee.
Canada Lee.
It's kind of like Canada Dry, but it's Canada Lee. And he, like so many, unlike so many of her lovers, did not ask her for money. Even when
Good for him.
Yeah, and he had a nightclub. He ran a nightclub called the Chicken Coop.
Maybe he didn't even need money.
Well, he did. He was going through a difficult time, and the Chicken Coop was going through a difficult time, but not once did he ask her for money, which I think is very admirable.
I do too.
Yeah. However, during a dinner in the early 1940s, Crosby's brother suddenly, she's back in the U.S., she's kind of back in touch with her brothers, expressed his dismay at their relationship.
Oh, gee.
And Crosby was so offended that she never talked to Walter for another 10 years.
Well, good for her. Why talk to
Well,
her?
it's interesting because she had already kind of separated herself from the family, hadn't really seen her brothers. She comes back to New York. She, starts writing.
Her smut.
She's writing some smut. She hooks up with, Mr. Canada Lee and kind of reconnects with her family. And what does he do? He ruins everything by being a complete asshole.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, too bad. So that was it. She didn't talk to him for another 10 years because of that. And Crosby and Lee's intimate relationship continued into the mid-1940s and contributed to her worldview. She actually wrote a never-published play called The Cage, and it was based on their relationship.
Oh, well. Mm-hmm. Did they perform it?
That I don't know. But knowing her, yes.
Probably.
Yes. Yes.
Goodness knows
The thing about her, she's like, there's so much to look up. I have like little questions everywhere. I could spend like a lifetime researching this person.
She was prolific.
She was amazing. So that I don't know, but I would assume yes. Yeah. Okay, so I haven't really mentioned her kids, but again, up until now, they were pretty much in boarding schools.
And may we say amen?
And we will say amen.
Yeah, because she lived a pretty racy life for kids.
Yeah, and she sent them to the finest schools, and they both really loved her, and she really loved them. And so, despite this craziness, she sent them to the very finest schools. She bought them the finest things. She wrote them letters. She visited them. She was involved as she,
Could be.
Yeah, and she at least kind of kept them away from her crazy life.
Okay.
Which was good.
Right.
And the one thing is she always encouraged them to be whoever they wanted to be.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, exactly. She was just whoever you want to be, whatever you want to be, you can do it, was kind of her attitude, which is really great. My mom used to say that too, which I think is really, really good. So her daughter decided that she really wanted to be an actress. So after her daughter was a little bit older, in her late teens, and her daughter was Polly. Her daughter went by Polly.
By Polly.
So she took Polly to Hollywood, and she ended up, by this point, her relationship with Mr. Lee had kind of fizzled out a bit. They were still very friendly, but she wasn't really dating him anymore. And she went to Hollywood, and she met Selbert Saffold Young.
Selbert Saffold Young. That's quite a name.
He went by Bert.
Oh, thank you.
Thank God.
Okay.
He went by Bert.
And who is this dude?
Well, he was an unemployed, aspiring actor.
Of course.
And a former football player. And he was 18 years her junior.
Oh, no.
Oh.
Why not?
Right?
Yeah.
And when he saw her staring at him in a restaurant, he immediately came over and asked her to dance. She described him as handsome as Hermes and as militant as Mars. I love she's so dramatic.
She is dramatic.
Well, like tell us about your new man. Well, he's as handsome as Hermes and as militant as Mars. And her good friend Constance, described Bert as untamed and entirely ruled by impulse.
Of course. Was there another guy?
18 years younger than her, yeah. So without a job, he convinced Crosby that he wanted to own a farm. And they decided to look for land on the East Coast. And they drove to Virginia looking for an old plantation house. And then their car broke down, of course.
I could be writing this.
I know. In front of Hampton Manor. It was covered, smothered in roses. And it was
roses. Not covered, smothered.
Yes,
okay.
And it was a cattle farm with a dilapidated brick mansion on a 486-acre estate in Bowling Green, Virginia.
Where else would you break down?
They fell in love with it.
Of course they did.
So, of course, they knocked on the door. said, hello, we'd like to buy your house. And they offered some ridiculous amount of money. And
they said sold.
Yeah, the people were like, thank God. We've been trying to get out of here for years, right?
I love this show.
I know. So she wrote to the New York Trust Company and instructed them to send their shares of stock that she used to buy the property, which was in need of renovation.
Of course.
And the two of them were married. And
so she married again.
Yes.
She just didn't bother to change her name.
No.
Wise woman.
No. Wise woman.
Yeah,
it's true.
I mean, cut your losses. Don't keep changing your name.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. So, yeah, they married, and guess what?
What?
There were problems.
No. There couldn't be. This perfect relationship, what could go wrong?
Completely impulsive, unemployed. Oh my gosh.
Talk about ADHD.
So
yeah.
He was always asking her for money.
No.
He was more like her son, really.
Sounds
Think about it, right?
Yeah. Mommy, buy me a farm.
He crashed her car. He ran up the telephone bill. He used all of her credit at the local liquor store.
Of course.
And then Bert ended one bout of drinking with a solo trip to Florida. And he did not come back to Virginia until the next year. Yeah.
I had a grandfather who went out for cigarettes and never came back.
Really?
Yeah.
You're kidding.
No.
Is that your grandma who owned the candy store?
Yeah.
Man.
But that's a whole nother Sheila and a whole nother time. Go back to Bert.
Did anybody ever see him again?
I don't think so. I think that was pretty much it.
He just disappeared?
Apparently Bert came back in a year.
Yeah, and that's what I want to know, though. Like, what happened during that year? I mean, I'm sure she entertained herself.
Yeah. Somehow she had plenty of resources, and
right.
I have a feeling she was resilient.
Yeah.
Maybe a little hurt, but...
So essentially he came back after a year, and he had become even more of a raging alcoholic.
Oh, good.
So while Crosby's husband fell into a drunken stupor every night, she spent her time churning out pages of pornography.
Talk about an outlet for your angst.
There you go. There you go.
The perfect outlet.
And Anna East Nin observed that everyone who wrote pornography with her wrote out of a self that was opposite to his or her identity, but identical with his or her desire.
Ooh, interesting.
That is interesting.
Thank you for that insight.
That is interesting. Do you love Anna East Nin?
I do.
I'm such a fan. I still remember being in college, like my freshman year of college, and I was at this weird little bookstore in downtown Detroit that was like underground and like all these like mildewed books, and I walked in and I saw a little bird sitting there, and I picked it up, and remember the guy was like, you need to get that. And that was like the beginning. Oh my gosh, totally. Yeah. Still remember it. Okay, but Crosby had grown up amid the social constraints imposed by her upper class family in New York, and was both nurtured or inflamed by having participated in a decade or more of taking both intellectual and physical lovers in Paris during the 1920s.
So now she's starting to reflect on that.
Yes, she's a lot to reflect on, right?
She does.
Crosby's husband continued to just be drunk, infrequently home. But, of course, Crosby was never lacking for company.
No, I don't imagine she was.
Right. So she extended an invitation to Salvador Dali and his wife Gala, who became long-term guests, during which he wrote much of his autobiography. And together they attended a masquerade party in New York, hosted for them by Crosby and other visitors, including Max Ernst, Buckminster Fuller, Stuart Kaiser, Henry Miller, Anna East Nin, Ezra Pound, and other friends from her time in Paris.
Lovely. Did they have the bed in the bath?
Probably. Who knows?
Who knows?
Who knows?
Did they have that on the farm? Did she
Yeah.
still on the farm?
I don't know. It's hard to know, right?
Right.
So, finally,
Yes.
by 1941, she divorced young.
Took her a while.
Yeah. And she moved to live in Washington, D.C. full-time, where she purchased a home. And she opened the Caresse Crosby Modern Art Gallery. That was, at that time, the city's only modern art gallery.
Nice.
Yeah, pretty cool, right?
Very cool. So we've done publishing, we've done art, we've done...
Acting.
Don't forget the brassieres.
See, you forget all about that. Like, wait, this is the same woman who invented the first bra, the first,
right?
The first real bra. Yeah. Okay, but So in December 1943, she wrote Henry Miller to ask if he had heard about her gallery and if he'd be interested in exhibiting some of his paintings there, because he's also a painter. And in 1944, she spent some time with him at his home in Big Sur, and later opened his first one-man show. It was an art show at her gallery.
Nice.
So it's nice. I like how she kind of has these relationships, but they follow her through her life. It's like
Yes.
she's always connecting and reconnecting. She's just a catalyst, you know.
Right.
And she's got this gallery, and
Yeah.
you know, yeah. So just like in the early days, when she was freeing women from the bodily restrictions of corsets, Caresse continued the feminist fight as an adult and began an organization called Women Against War in the 1950s.
Wow. Very nice.
She was a real Miss World who actually did want world peace. Her political activism continued to go hand in hand with her love for the arts and extravagance.
That kind of sums her up, doesn't it?
It does. It does. It does. Okay, so in the winter of 1954-55, Crosby's son, Billy Peabody, was in charge of the Paris office for a company called the American Overseas Airlines. Okay, we haven't really talked about Billy. We talked briefly about Polly.
Yeah.
So Polly went on to live in Hollywood.
Polly Peabody.
I guess she was Polly Peabody, right? I think you're right.
Well, she changed her name.
Yeah, exactly. And so that was kind of and that was kind of her thing. She went to Hollywood. I don't think she became a very well-known actress, but she worked in the arts, that kind of thing. Billy stayed in Europe, and again, he was in charge of this company called the American Overseas Airlines. And he and his wife Josette had a small third-floor walk-up apartment in the fancy part of Paris, and they heated with a fireplace and a stove, which I guess was kind of normal at that time. I don't know. Maybe not. I don't know. Seems a little weird for like a
Don't
fancy...
tell me they had a fire and
Okay.
okay.
So really sadly, on January 25th, 1955, Billy died in his sleep of carbon monoxide poisoning. And
I just made a joke about the fire and his dad. I'm sorry.
you did.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's terrible.
It all started with, oh my God, it's kind of fitting. Oh, it's so terrible. You're right, it's terrible. Oh my gosh. Josette was found unconscious, was able to be revived, but
Billy, not so much.
no. So Crosby traveled to Paris for his funeral, and she was, again, completely devastated.
Of course.
I mean, she dealt with a lot of loss.
She
in her,
did
like,
deal
you know,
with
she
a
did
lot of
amazing,
loss.
like, it was this, yeah.
She was quite a resilient spirit, but she certainly had her fair share of stuff.
Yeah. So she returned to Europe in the 1950s and decided to buy a crumbling 15th century Italian castle outside of Rome, of course.
Of course.
Does she still have the windmill? I don't know.
Or the farm and
I think she sold that. I think she got rid of that with her ex-husband there. But she transformed it, of course, into an artist commune.
Of course.
And a center for world peace.
I love it.
So sincere political activism was combined with her enjoyment of extravagance, and she was carried around the castle grounds in a sedan chair designed by Buckminster Fuller. So her daughter decided to go to Ibiza, and she decided to meet her daughter in Ibiza. And she shipped a black limousine and chauffeur over to the island just for a single night stay.
Why not?
Why not? She can.
Got to get around.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So she spent the rest of her life dividing her time between Italy and the U.S. and continuing to support the peace movement. And in her later years, she wrote, "I can't say the bra will ever take as great a place in history as a steamboat, but I did invent it."
Ooh.
And just before she died, a documentary filmmaker made a short movie about her life in her castle. He went to her castle and kind of interviewed her. And while giving him a tour, the then 70-year-old Caresse Crosby flashed her breasts to the camera. Of course she did.
Of course you did.
Of course.
The woman who invented the bra went braless for a good portion of her life.
It's true.
I love
it's
it.
true.
Well, of course, we've all worn bras, and we know why you
Yes.
would go braless.
Yes, exactly. And I want to watch that documentary. I wonder if it's available somewhere. But Time magazine declared her literary godmother to the lost generation of expatriate writers in Paris, an apt description, but a rather muted one. At a time when the role of a woman was sharply defined and controlled, Caresse did not merely reject gender constraints, she acted as if they did not exist at all.
I love that.
I know, right?
Yeah.
And according to her great granddaughter. Her name is Tamara Colchester. Her 78 years were spent pinballing across the world, shifting identities, living vibrantly and often violently, and disregarding obstacles with the single-minded verve of the courageous and extremely wealthy. Her claim that money weighed very little in the balance of my decisions is best explained by the reality of her large inherited wealth. Perhaps it is easy to do extraordinary things when the pot of gold is inexhaustible and runs to renting elephants and buying Italian castles. However, her fiscal visibility does not explain the technicolor of her life and relationships. For that, she must take the credit.
I love that.
I know.
That was well said.
I know. And then, the people have speculated on her through the years. And again, I had never really heard of her.
I hadn't either.
So I'm completely fascinated now. I'm going to put her in my Nellie Bly file, like my Anna East, Nellie Bly, like some of my favorite women. And it's very fitting. Her great granddaughter said the bra was perfectly symbolic, her breaking away from the restricted life that she'd been born into. It's a very symbolic gesture that she invented that.
Yeah.
And she not only is now credited with inventing the modern bra, she also launched Salvador Dali on the international art scene.
Wow.
She also founded the first publishing house for writers that included Hemingway, Joyce, Faulkner. But the extraordinary life of Caresse Crosby, a notorious figure in the 1920s bohemian Paris, has been sadly and largely forgotten.
Well,
See?
I am glad you resurrected her, Missy. I love this Sheela.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And I do too, right? And there's just so many things. Let's see, Molly Russell, who has done some writing about her, said we should spread her story, free the nipple, and perhaps think twice before burning our bras. Although she contends that inventing the bra was the least interesting thing this blue-blooded bohemian ever did. Right?
Right. All to get through a debutante ball.
Right. And, again, there have been several books written about her life, including her great-granddaughter. Again, Tamara Colchester has wrote a book in 2018 called Heart is a Burial Ground. Again, kind of that black sun, right?
That black sun.
And then, according to Anna East Nin, Caresse Crosby entered with the buoyancy of a powder puff. Caressing voice, her fur hat, her eyelashes, her smile all glittery with animation. The word on her lips was always yes, and all her being says yes, yes, yes to all that is happening and that all is that's offered to her. Stories surround Caresse like perfume, a necklace, a feather. She seems fresher and younger than all the women there because of her mobility, ease, flowingness. D.H. Lawrence would have called it her livingness. A pollen carrier, I thought, as she mixed, stirred, brewed, concocted her friendships by a constant flux and reflux of activity, by curiosity and amorousness. Isn't that beautiful?
That is beautiful.
Yeah.
Great, Sheela.
I know, right? I know. And again, I think everybody should do some more investigating about her. And it's interesting, too, because as I was kind of looking through things, her ex-husband...
Which one?
Well, exactly. Mr. Peabody, right?
Mr. Peabody, yeah.
So this is
Chasing fire.
So this is an interesting little side note, which is that, of course, we know upon returning from World War I, he became a raging alcoholic and chasing fire engines, right? Yep. But he eventually became sober.
Oh.
And he sought help through the Emmanuel movement. And he later wrote a book called The Common Sense of Drinking, in which he described, for the first time, alcoholism as a disease with no cure. Yeah. And his book became a bestseller.
Wow.
And actually became a major influence on Alcoholics Anonymous founder Bill Wilson.
Wow. I'm glad you shared that.
So that's kind of interesting,
Yeah.
this little side note that, know. Mm-hmm. And Caresse wrote her own autobiography, actually, in 1953. And it's called The Passionate Years. And in the book, she related that she became America's first Girl Scout, which I have to look into a little more, invented the backless brassiere, held briefly the women's record for the 220-yard dash, and was indirectly responsible for the founding of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Well, Well, okay, there was a little leap, but we'll take it.
Yeah. So I got to look into I got to look into the Girl Scout thing, the 220 dash. I mean, there's so much to look into. That's what I mean. It's there's so many little tributaries to follow this woman.
Yep, you can't say she lived small. She was a pretty large Sheela.
Yes. And she actually ended up publishing Harry's journal too.
Oh.
She did.
Well, she was a publisher among so many other things.
Yeah. She really loved him. It was very sad. Very sad. And you know what? I did do a little research, and I couldn't find any evidence of holding record for the 220-yard dash, nor being the first Girl Scout.
Nope.
But that doesn't mean it's not true.
That's true.
I did do a little...
Well, we'll leave the door open for that.
Yeah.
We'll give her a little credit. She certainly has done a lot.
Right. And actually, I did a little research, too, a little bit more research on her daughter, Polly. Mm-hmm. And she's actually quoted as saying that her mother was a trustworthy mother. Okay. But again, I like the fact that she had her life over. It sounds like she had her life here, and then she had her life as a mother. And she really, I don't think she exposed her children. I'm sure they heard about things, especially as they got older. How could they, she was all over the place. But they described her as a trustworthy mother who really loved them. Yeah. That they could really count on her. Yeah. So that was nice to know. So that is our Sheela of the day.
Well, thank you for that. That was awesome.
Sure. Are you going to name your next dog Clitoris?
No. But thank you for asking.
I'll name my dog Scrotum if you name your dog Clitoris.
I have a feeling we'll just never quite get there.
No, I don't think so. But this has been really fun. Thank you for. I'm excited for your next Sheela.
I'm excited to share her.
We're going to keep going here.
Yeah.
And thanks for joining us, gals. Thank you to our beautiful Sheelas, to all our beautiful listeners. We are delighted that you've joined us once again.
And if you have a Sheela in mind, let us know. We'd love to carry her.
We'd love to. We would love to. We'd love to hear from you. So thanks again for listening, and we will catch you next time. Bye. Bye.